threat to occupy parliament buildings in an event that has seen mixed reactions from a section of Kenyans, including President William Ruto, who has termed the act as treasonous. Let's take a look at what Kenyans are saying this morning. The hashtag is New Dawn. Speak to us on X at K24 TV. We have Ongicho Bob, who says, at this point, it's not about reject finance bill anymore. He has shown us his arrogance and defiance. We want President Ruto to resign as Kenya's president. Tupatane Thursday. We will not tire. No retreat, no surrender. They will not believe. And we have Lawrence Mwenda, who says, President William Ruto, you are totally out of touch with reality. Your advisors have failed you. You don't fight fire with fire. You fight fire with water. Who will tell the king that he is naked? Henry Kamande says the presidential advisors seem to be tired with him too. How do you let the president address the nation and call demonstration treason? Why did not address the real issue of the finance bill in that speech? Homelander says there's no going back. Either he kills us all and remains with the corpse or resigns. William Ruto, you must resign. And we have Satoshi, who says President Ruto should resign immediately as he has betrayed his oath to serve the citizens of Kenya faithfully. Juma Francis says the problem with yesterday's declaration by President Ruto is that we might have so many innocent disappearances because of such a time. The state intends to form imaginary enemies and financiers. It becomes paranoid and things will just be ugly. Murigi Kibaki says President Ruto cannot insulate himself from this case of incompetence by blaming some unseen forces for alleged treasonous acts. The first act of treason was his cowing to IMF to kill us with all sorts of taxes. William Ruto must resign and go work at IMF. Eliud Nimrod says, we Kenyans have been called criminals by the dictator President William Ruto. Why is it hard for him to withdraw the finance bill of 2024? All right, and those are interesting questions from Kenyans, many of whom took part in that protest yesterday. So let's bring in governance expert, Professor Fred Ogola, by way of phone. Professor, a very good morning to you. Many thanks for making time for us here on New Dawn. We're taking a look at comments from Kenyans on the conversation, and many are asking for the resignation of President William Ruto. Many are dissatisfied with the manner in which the president responded to the protests yesterday, saying that he did not actually address the issue itself, the finance bill. What are your thoughts?
Thank you very much, Pastor Wule. Thank you very much for bringing me back on the New Dawn. Let me start by, first of all, throwing my condolences to all those people who are injured, those who died, to their families. I feel them. I'm a parent. I'm a brother, I'm a sister. It feels very bad. I also want to take this time to thank all the demonstrators who are peaceful, who continue shouting on the street. They were peaceful. I was myself on the street, so I know I am not a criminal. I know that I am not treasonous. I know that I'm not a terrorist. There are many Kenyans who are very peaceful, who carry the Kenyan flag, showed their sovereignty and rest. And I also want to take this time to condemn the violence that was there. Those who died, the police must have crossed the line. And I also want to condemn the abductions and the meaningless arrests. But at the same time, I want to say the following, that some people, demonstrators crossed the line, and they were not supposed to occupy parliament. Those are what we call protected areas. With all the sympathy I have for them, the empathy I have for them, I know they had no choice because I was there. The things went out of control. But let me address the question you asked. According to me, the president could have not let us reach here. There's a crisis of leadership in the country. And there are so many ways to stop this from happening. Kenyans said in the Finance Bill 2023, they were unhappy with this thing. It was pushed down their throat. They breathed it. Now 2024 was also being pushed just the same way. So we like leadership which is not reactive. The president was very reactive, now talking about things which have been destroyed, talking about life which has been lost. There was a way to avert this before it happens. We want proactive leadership. The signs were there. You could see them. You could predict it. you could see there was going to be a situation that cannot be held. Now, even calling the military to come to address the issue, it was about the finance bill. You don't need guns. You don't need to open the military to come address this matter. You do not need to threaten these young people. What I wanted was empathy with these young people. The president has still options that he can use. He can still just say, let me withdraw the finance bill. Maybe public participation was not done the right way. I've heard it from people on the street, social media. Kenyans spoke everything they wanted to say before they went to the street. It looks like that was the last resort. So him saying that these are terrorists, these are prisoners, I was on the street. I don't see any sign of someone being financed. Who was financing me to go there? And I was like many other people. I saw doctors, I saw teachers, I saw security officers. I saw some policemen telling me, we are with you, chini ya maji. Those are conversations which we have. Every Kenyan feel this. Saying there were leaders of this thing, there was no leader. The leader is poverty. The leader is the economic pain people are going through. The leader is the finance bill, which is hurting everybody. So I'm sure that the president was supposed to look at the finance bill head on. What is so important, in the 303 billion shillings that will come from the finance bill that will cost people lives on this one, why not just withdraw it and say, let me go back to the drawing board and let me listen to you Kenyans. How would you want it? Let's engage professional economists in this country so that you can see. According to me, Kasavuli, I will summarize this way. Is this the crisis of government or government in the crisis? According to me, the crisis of government means the finance bill which needs to be addressed, the economic situation which is hurting Kenyans, the poverty which is spreading, the unemployment which is crazy, corruption, wastages. This is the crisis of government, which means problem the government needs to solve. Crisis in government means that this government, in the crisis itself, that is unable to solve the problem. The government is dysfunctional, that it cannot even handle a finance bill. Look at parliament. When I mean government, I mean the executive, I mean parliament, I also mean judiciary, but I also mean that there's a failure of leadership across the board. People tell young people, go and demonstrate peacefully. Who in Kenya knows how to demonstrate peacefully? Why did we see all the church leaders? Why did we see the civil society? Why don't we even see anyone who thinks a leader to show young people how to demonstrate peacefully? But do the policemen know how to deal with any peaceful demonstration? So we are having a crisis in government, and the crisis the government has makes them incapable of being able to solve the crisis which is before them. The crisis is an economic issue. Look at the finance bill and the budget. The government has said they are suspending employment for a whole year. When these Gen Zs we're talking about, they enter university, 535,000 every year, then there's no job. How can a budget of 4.2 trillion not able to create a single job? So right. I'm seeing a situation of desperateness here, and I think the government needs to show leadership. At the same time, we need to tell the young people that there are other ways to solve this issue. Like for us, we recommend that there is a need to amend the Constitution on the issue of how to exercise this right of sovereignty, both by the president and the citizens. Okay, many thanks. That is Professor Fred Ogola. He is a governance expert weighing in on the debate on the Finance Bill 2024 crisis. And just a reminder there that 195 members of parliament voted in favor of the report of the Committee of the Whole House yesterday against 109 members from the Azimio coalition. Now, the voting was largely on party lines, so to speak, and many would say that President William Ruto's hand in the approval of the bill was apparent, as the 195 members of parliament actually were all Kenya Kwanza members of parliament. I'd like to bring you in, Vivian, because only 3 votes were recorded as spoiled votes, but there were abstentions as well. And there's a look at page 9 of the Daily Nation, and it has a report. It has a list of how members of parliament voted in the report. Those who voted yes, those who voted no, those who had spoiled votes, and then a whole list of those who were absent as well. Now, Kenyans are taking their members of parliament to account. Let's begin with those who are absent. What do you make of that abstention? A betrayal. Why are you absent? This is an issue that is being discussed, has been in discussion for more than 3 weeks now.
There were protests last week regarding this issue. Members of parliament, I think all of them were in parliament, save for just, I think, one, to vote last week. So why would a member of parliament representing his constituents be absent from such a crucial, debate and vote? It means you are, absconding your duties. It means you're not fit for office. It means you're siding with the regime and you're trying to find an easy route out. But we had already said anybody who abstains from this vote, it is a vote of yes. It is taken as a vote of yes. It is taken as a betrayal of the will of the people, and it should be ready to be held accountable. There's no way you will explain your way out of this and say, I was not in parliament. Why were you not there? It was an important vote. It's an important conversation. It affects our livelihoods. It affects our lives. Where were you? What was more important than this? Those are the questions they need to answer. All right.
And then there's the diligence and the seriousness with which Kenyans then expected that this report would be debated in the committee of the whole House. But I watched the proceedings, and what we saw is that legislators were voting like machines, even when the wrong clauses were read out. I remember one particular time, the committee chair, finance committee chair, wrongly moved amendments to clause 36 instead of clause 34. But the House went ahead to approve the same. In fact, there was a member of parliament from the opposition that protested, and so the matter was later rectified. So we did not see that seriousness from members of parliament, really, even those who are voting yes, in debating these clauses, setting them straight and ensuring that they were what was good for Kenyans. What do you make of just the way the debate happened? Opposition MPs did not front any amendments, rejected the bill and every clause, while Kenya Kwanza MPs were not very keen on the clauses they were passing.
I am actually tempted to believe what the Juja MP, alleged, that MPs were bribed and given 2 million each to vote yes for the bill. And so for them, it's like the state has captured, the executive has captured the legislature. So they're just voting machines. They have taken, their 30 silver coins, and they are now just voting, to please their master without consideration for the protest that happened last week. Already last week there were two protests that were held, and people have openly, from Nyeri, Mombasa, Turkana, Eldoret, everywhere, all parts of Kenya, people have been openly against this thing. When ordinary Kenyans are interviewed, I've seen media interviews, people are openly unhappy about this thing. People want corruption to be curbed. People want our resources managed better, our priorities aligned so that we are not spending 1 billion on State House furniture, But they are not listening. And it's this bravado and chest thumping that's really, really enraging people and getting people to actually go out of the street, because you feel like anything else we say will not be listened to. Maybe being on the street and protesting this thing is the way for our voices to be heard, because you're ignoring us. And yet, this thing will squarely fall on our pay slips and on our incomes. So why should we suffer for only a few people to gain?
All right. I'd like to bring in Ernest, who is a communications officer from the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Ernest, a very good morning to you, and many thanks for joining us in New Dawn. The Kenya Human Rights Commission has been at the forefront of calling for accountability and investigations in cases of killings and police brutality in the wake of this finance bill protests. Let's begin with an update on the numbers with regard to those who have been abducted, those who lost their lives, or those who were injured, if you have them, in this protest.
Thank you, Michelle. So yesterday, 13 protesters were shot with live bullets, 4 with rubber bullets, and 3 were hit by tear gas canisters. At least 53 protesters were arrested by the police. Of those shot with police bullets, 5 tragically lost their lives. All those shot and killed by the police were peaceful. They were not armed. They were just marching. KHRC was on the street, and we witnessed police shooting 4 protesters outside Parliament, one of whom died on the spot. KHRC also saw police firing aimlessly into a crowd of protesters, who were meters away from the police along City Hall Way. Ahead of yesterday's protest, as all of us know, there were 21 abductions, illegal abductions. These protests were largely peaceful. We were there and we saw how they were unfolding. The first and second protests were very, very peaceful. Police were the ones provoking violence, but they failed in the first two protests. Yesterday, we saw police firing tear gas and using water cannons at crowds that were just peaceful and chanting anti-finance bill slogans. It is police who were provoking violence. We also noted that some sections of the crowd destroyed property, and KHRC condemns this act. But what is important is to note that there is high likelihood that the peaceful Gen Z protests were infiltrated. Could this have been the state's attempt to brand Gen Z as violent and find grounds to block future peaceful protests over finance bill? We believe so.
Right.
See, when the president addressed the nation yesterday night and called the protest treasonous, he should have told Kenyans why the finance bill is so important than Kenyan lives. He should have told us why he is forcing the bill on us. The president on Sunday claimed he listened, and the message on the street was clear: rejects finance bill. Why then does he force the bill on us? Why is he not listening to the street voices telling him to reject the bill? Ruto also says that KDF has been deployed, and this was later confirmed by a Gazette notice from the Defense Cabinet Secretary, Eden Duale. But you know what? That KDF deployment is illegal because Article 124C of our Constitution says that the National Assembly must approve such a deployment. At what point did the National Assembly sit, debate, and approve this deployment?
They did not. All right.
The National Assembly did not approve the deployment. So the President and the Minister and the Defense Minister must withdraw KDF from the street because they are there illegally. Kicking them on the street is a veiled attempt to suppress future protests over the finance bill. And they want to instill fear so that people don't come out and protest peacefully.
Right, and so that's my next question, Ernest, because you mentioned that there's a likelihood that the protests were infiltrated, and President William Ruto also alluded to that in his address last night. And so the president went ahead to now order a crackdown on dangerous people and organized criminals, and says they will deal with it firmly. Does this order to crack down on dangerous people concern human rights activists?
This really, really concerns us because the state created this problem and now they want to use it to crack down on peaceful protesters or people that the state think are behind these protests. You see, they started saying that, oh, these protests are being funded, oh, there is external forces behind it. When that could not sell, now they found a way to try and create problems so that they have a justification to come hard on peaceful protesters. This is a really, really, really bad situation, and I'm so disturbed that the president of Kenya can stand and tell the nation that they're going to crack down on peaceful protesters.
All right, many
by
thanks.
The situation that it was created by the state itself.
Many things. That is Ernest Cornell. Ernest is a communications officer with the Kenya Human Rights Commission, detailing a host of concerns, even with that directive by President William Ruto to crack down on organized criminals who have infiltrated the anti-finance bill protests. Human rights activists there say this may just increase the amount of abductions, the number of abductions we've seen, as well as suppress freedom of speech and expression. In studio with us is Vivian Tao, who is a communications and public affairs expert. Vivian, before we wind up, when all is said and done, what conversation should the country be having now?
We should be having a conversation about corruption. We should be having a conversation about equal resource distribution within the country. That's national government and county governments. We should also be having a conversation about appropriation of our budget. Where do we spend money? What things do we prioritize? Because clearly, 800 million being appropriated for to the DP's office for confidential expenditure is not a priority. A priority, however, is healthcare. Education is a priority. Food security in agriculture is a priority. And we should get to a place where now there's consequences to misusing public resources. There's consequences to corruption, because up to now, I don't think we have anyone who's serving jail time for corruption. Just the other day, I saw EACC, I think, pardoned Okothobado, after just fining him about 15% of the amount he allegedly, stole, which is, it's unfair. It's like saying, if I steal 200 million, then if I only pay for, 10% of that, then I go scot-free. I don't think that's how it should work. So if we should have a serious conversation about resources in this country, how we collect them and how we manage them and where we spend them. Until we do that, I don't think we will see any relenting in this conversation.
Absolutely, and then that would call for more accountability, more participation, even by Kenyans, as we have seen, even as they exercise their democratic right. But we have seen, and even human rights officials have raised concerns over possible suppression of anti-government or government critics, so to speak. Not really anti-government, but government critics. And yesterday, very conveniently, we had Safaricom announce an internet disruption, and many Kenyans took this with a pinch of salt, because the day, it was very what would be the word? It was very convenient, so to speak, according to many social media users. What did you make of that internet delay?
I think it's part of state machinery, and I don't know, I hope Safaricom will use all their PR tactics to see how they can get out of it. But the general feeling, the general sentiment of Kenyans, of people who saw this, like you've said, found it very convenient. And we know there are no coincidences here. The state was looking at every way of suppressing this thing. And if you're a Twitter user, X user, you will realize a lot of the hashtags that were trending were, suppressed. And even though we knew they were trending, you'd go on the app and not be able to view them. They would not come up on your trending list or your suggestion list. So it's like there was a deliberate suppression of just expression within the digital space yesterday, but I can tell you it will not work. Right. We are past, these are such Moi era tactics, and it will not work. I've seen a lot of people actually saying, why are we surprised when the president was actually accused of crimes against, humanity at The Hague, no less. So why would we be surprised that he would, authorize snipers to take out people on the street who are unarmed? If these people were really criminals, the rule of law should take precedence. That's why we have a constitution. These people should have been arrested, whoever those criminals are, whoever those criminal gangs are, they should have been arrested by now and, prosecuted.
Right.
Yani hao watu wanashindwa na bandits wanakuja kupiga watu risasi on the streets of Nairobi.
And it's a conversation we'll have later, but as the protest was happening yesterday, the first contingent of Kenyan police officers, 400 of them, landed in Haiti as part of a US-backed security intervention. It's clear that the whole world was watching what is happening in Kenya yesterday, and we've seen critics now raise issue of human rights violations, even seen as witnessed in the manner in which security officers handled the protests yesterday. What do you make of the fact that this first contingent has already landed in Haiti, despite all the legal issues that the country still has? It's very ironic.
It's very ironic that we're having human rights violations back home, and yet we are claiming to want to help another country, the Caribbean, sort out their own, domestic issues, when at home we can't even handle our own. We are grappling, with dissent, and the government doesn't even know how to respond to, issues raised, valid issues raised by citizens. But on one hand, you know, we want to be seen to be, you know, big boys in the global arena. Can we first handle our issues at home, safeguard our democracy? I got very offended when I heard the president saying yesterday that, you know, he's promising Kenyans that they will be safe. How will you be safe when people have been abducted from their homes at 3 a.m.? You know,
Right.
Which safety is this that he's promising? To whom?
Right.
If he cannot safeguard our simple right to picket and to protest unarmed on the streets, which right will he safeguard? Which one?
Okay, let's wind up there. Many thanks for speaking to us. That is Vivian Tosh, easy
Can I just have like some last words,
expert.
please?
30 seconds, Vivian. We must wind up.
I'm going to say this. We are doing this for Kenya. We're doing this for all Kenyans. And we will not relent, we will not bow, we will not be silenced. No amount of arrest, no amount of abductions will make us relent on this. Viva Kenyans, viva, viva, viva.
Right.
Yes, we will not relent, we will not back down.
She is a communications and public affairs expert speaking to us here on New Dawn in the aftermath of that anti-finance bill protest that took place yesterday and likely to continue as President William Ruto makes his stand unknown, so to speak, on the fate of the finance bill. This is a developing story that we continue to follow for you in a lot more detail here on K24 TV. Many thanks for watching us this morning. My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo. Good morning.